Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Get ready for truth bombs, belly laughs, and the kind of accent that turns car into a two-syllable adventure. Here's your host, Sean.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Man, you want to talk about being like 13 seconds late from when I normally hit the button? Welcome to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining us. The chat room is already lighting me up for being a little tardy. At least that's what I think I read was tardy. Cosmic Bard, Ortiz in the chat, Ricky Robinson, BZ, Canada Heavy Haul, Mission Ready Men, Buffoon of the Week. Wow, everybody's just in here tonight. Thank goodness. Got a lot going on. It is the 9th of July. I won't try to gaslight you into thinking it's the 10th, no matter what my little promo thing. I'm always like a day off. Reaver Common Sense in the chat room. I was not 2 minutes late. I pressed the button about 15 seconds before 8. Normally I do it a minute before 8. So it was 45 seconds left. Got a lot to talk about this evening. I'm going to get the worst, the hardest, kind of the angriest part out of the way early, if I'm being honest. So yesterday during the cabinet meeting, President Trump was asked about the Epstein files. I talked about that Monday night and everything that happened with Pam Bondi and the list doesn't exist, yada, yada, yada. And his response was tone deaf. His response was snide. His response was not what the American people wanted. And it's not what I wanted. And I'm a little upset about it. I'll go out in the limb right here and say, I'm pretty pissed off about how that response went. Now, do I continue to support President Trump? Yes. Yes, I do. I'm not going to let one thing, I'm not Elon, I'm not going to let one thing piss me off and run away. That's not how I work. The overall totality of the incident is actually more important. But this pisses me off. One of the things the American people have been talking about for years, it's always in the top of social media. You see it everywhere. Regular conversations, social media, the news. Mike, thank you for joining us, Mike, in the chat. You see all of it about Epstein. We were told a couple months ago that the files were coming. We were told that there would be transparency, and there's not. And of all the ways he could have answered, I think even if he had said something to the effect of, look, I'm not fully up to speed on that. There's kind of a war in the Middle East I'm taking care of. I'm not dealing with that directly right now. I will get back to you after I find out what happened. Would have been a perfectly good answer. But to say, are people still talking about that when he's on social media all the time? We know that. We know that because of Truth Social. And we know it's him typing. It's not like Biden where it was an intern. Mr. President, this is one of those few times I'm going to say to you, you need to do better. The American people want you to do better in that situation. We're pissed. We're aggravated. There are victims. As somebody pointed out, not only the physical victims, the ones and all the children that were in the videos are victims. Furious. He went, this topic is too important trust-wise for the American people for you to discard like somebody was going to ask you if you were going golfing this weekend. I have supported you. Millions, obviously, have supported you. But this is something that I feel needs to be addressed because the American people just aren't having what you said. It just can't happen like this on such a major issue. Now, look, I said Monday night, there could be more behind the scenes that we don't know, and that's fine. You can just say what I said earlier. I'm not up to speed. I haven't talked to Pam, whatever. She's in the room, but we haven't talked about that specifically. Okay. But this should never, ever, ever be a blow off topic because of the amount of people and who the people are. The victims were children, and those should always be the priority. So I will scold you in front of everybody for this specific incident. I will continue to support you overall. There are things that, look, one of the things you have to understand when it comes to politicians and topics and events, not everybody's going to agree, and that's okay. It's all right. Look, I don't agree with what Elon did. Does he have the right to do that? Does he have the right to try to start another party? Yes. I don't agree with everybody shitting on him because he still was a big part of this last victory. He still did a lot for us. He felt like his back got turned on him when they didn't do the Doge cuts. And yes, everyone wants to point to the the electric vehicle mandate, yada yada yada. But the simple fact of the matter is, his job was to go in and find all the money we can cut to save money and get us back on track. There was all of these recommendations that were made. He poured a ton of money, time, and effort into being able to be on that platform to make that happen. He has the right to speak out and he has the right to be upset. And look, I don't necessarily agree with how Elon's handling it. I remind everybody, Elon's autistic. Autistic people's emotions respond differently. I know firsthand. My son's autistic. They have a tendency to hold a grudge. And then when they finally let the grudge go, they just let it go. It's like it didn't happen. That not all, but a lot. So I get why he did that. I just don't agree with it. But I also don't think that makes Elon Musk the worst person in the world. I think he's going to learn a hard lesson. I think he learned a hard lesson, and I think he's going to learn a harder lesson with this new political party. I also am aggravated at all these people who are mad at somebody for trying to start another party. Well, look, will it split conservatives? I don't think so. Because look, Elon, even though he didn't say it this last time, he's not a huge supporter of 2A. Some of the environmental stuff we are not going to see eye to eye on, especially with the electric cars, yada, yada, yada. So we're not always going to agree. Great. I don't think he's going to hurt conservatives at all. Actually, I think he'll get more Green Party people over. I don't remember going in the last election because they were so not important. A little third party that was thinking about running, and they were going to get the West Virginia senator there was said to be potentially running for their for president for them. It's just I can't think of it. But whether you like what the party stands for or not, and I said this with that party too, and I'll say it with the Green Party and the other parties. We were warned in this country about a two-party system. We bitch about the two-party system because of the rhinos and how much it affects us. Now, outside of a communist, I don't think any party should exist. I mean, let me rephrase that. I don't think communists should exist. But I think every other party go for it. You can run on whatever you want. Let people make their decision. Let people make their choices. That's how it works. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, they're probably going to go back to the big two, and that's okay as well. People have the right to do that. And we, as Americans, who were warned against the two-party system, we've seen what the Omni government has done. We should at least acknowledge that it is acceptable for somebody to start another party. And maybe there'll be 10 parties, maybe there'll be 20 parties. I said on Sackheads years ago, the two-party system, when it was run by rhinos, the true conservatives hated. We hated it. Absolutely hated it. The libertarians, we don't agree with everything the libertarians for, but we were okay for the most part of the Libertarian Party when it was the older Libertarian Party, not what it is now. What it is now has gone bizarre. But we can't just say new parties are all bad on the premise of the fact that this is America. Now, like I said, throw communism out. Communism, socialism don't belong. There's a reason why they ask you about that when you're trying to get your citizenship. But we cannot be the party of freedom and the Constitution and turn around and say another party shouldn't exist. Now, we should be realists. None of these parties have ever got traction for a reason. That's just a reality. They've never gotten traction for a reason because they don't have enough realism in there that would move this country to a better, more free constitutional place. It's not going to happen. BZ said, it's just another Labor Party. Yeah. And people don't really go for the Labor Party in this country. So it'll flop and it'll go away just like that other one that they were trying to do the last election did. It would be like the Green Party, the Libertarian Party. And could it split off votes? Okay. But you know what? That's a consequence that is made by the politicians in this country, not the voters. That's a consequence that was chosen by not cutting the budget like the way we were promised was going to happen. Now, does that mean the one big beautiful bill is terrible? No, it's got some great things in there, but it also has a lot of pork in there that we didn't want. As a matter of fact, I know many of us were complaining about the amount of pork that was in there and the amount of stuff that was in there that should not have been in there. But here we are. I will stand by the Constitution. I'll stand by freedom, and I will stand by what I said. I'm not necessarily happy that Elon walked away. I'm not happy with how he did it, but he has the right to do it. And we have the right to start parties. It'd be like if I started the Sackhead Party and there are people like that might actually be involved in that and like that or whatever, because it would be constitutional. It would stand for the freedom. It would be rooted in what our country's history is. But there's going to be plenty of people that say it's horrible and it should never happen. Okay, but that's an opinion. That doesn't mean that I don't have the right to do it. Now, if your opinion's that he shouldn't do it because it's stupid, okay. If your opinion is he shouldn't do it because it could hurt conservatives in some places, understood. Not arguing with you. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have the right to do it. And it doesn't mean we should also forget about the good things that Elon did do for this party. And I say that because I think after this temper tantrum's over and he realizes that less than 4% of the country support the America Party or whatever it's called. I don't even know what it's called. That's the funniest part about this. Then I think tides will shift. But so that's my little 2 cents about that. We have to remember as conservatives that we have to stick by the Constitution. Constitution doesn't say there's only 2 parties. Constitution doesn't say that we can't start parties we don't like. Look, I firmly believe that the America Party would probably hurt the Democrats way more than the Republicans. The old school Democrats would probably flood to that more than conservatives and Republicans would. That's just a guess. That's just my gut feeling, having watched politics forever. But, it doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. It's just not smart, I guess is a good way of putting it. There's a ton going on in the chat, and I apologize because I was ranting. Cosmic Bard says, third party gets in trouble for one reason only. They open their mouth and you can hear who we don't really want to win. Yeah, that's what happens to libertarians. Let's see. BZ, it's always interesting that the third party always goes way into the outfield expecting to win as normies. They look like they're bad shit. From Canada Heavy Hall. 1,000%. BZ says CHH asks the libertarians, of course they're also kind of nuts. Free drugs, open borders. Nope. Yep. And I agree 1,000% with that. But that look, those platforms haven't caught the tide, if you will. It hasn't caught the momentum for a reason. So I read a little bit about the crown. So they're talking in the chat room because once we hit 500, you get like these little tiny perks on YouTube, and one of it's like you can get the crown, the number one place chatter, the number two, and it's just a way to get people to engage, and it's fun, it's goofy, and the fact that people are fighting over who's first, second, and third place tonight is absolutely hysterical. I got to move on because I have 4 minutes. I can bust this out in 4 minutes. It's not that big of a deal. Biden's doctor, Kevin O'Connor, who was a colonel in the army. He was, he's a doctor. He is what he is. There's not much more to say about that. But he was the one who examined the former president, Joe Biden, and said everything was fine when he was examining him. So he was called to a GOP oversight hearing to speak, and he wasn't as willing to talk about it now as he was back then. Hold on one second.
Dr. O'Connor, before we begin, I would like to go over the ground rules for this deposition. The committee will conduct today's deposition in accordance with the House of Representatives regulations for the use of deposition authority, which were furnished to your counsel. This regulation is incorporated into the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform at Rule 15, which was also furnished to your counsel. The questioning will proceed in rounds. The majority will ask questions for an hour, and then the minority will have an opportunity to ask questions for an hour if they choose. There will be one staff counsel per side asking the questions during each round. To the extent members have questions for the witness, they will be propounded during their side's respective rounds. Do you understand?
On the advice of counsel, I must respectfully decline to answer based on the physician-patient privilege and reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. I am not a lawyer, and I must follow my lawyer's advice in this matter.
So he pleads the fifth. Now, patient doctor privilege, absolutely. All of that. Plead the fifth, absolutely. But what do we know about the fifth? We know usually people who invoke the fifth, it's because they do not want to incriminate themselves. That is the entire point of the Fifth Amendment. The fact that he did not choose to answer some questions and invoke fifths under the others, if you asked him what was already public record about that he put into public record, hey, did you write this? Yes. Did you write this? Yes. Did you write this? Yes. And he was answering those. And then when it got into more personal information, doctor patient privilege, and then he's invoked the fifth because of that. Okay. We still know where he's pointing, but that's his right. You can do that. But the fact that he took 0 questions blew my mind, because let's face it, this is working up to the auto pen. That's what this is. This is, you lied to the American people about Biden's health. You signed documents saying that he was healthy when he wasn't. You absolutely could probably be in the jackpot here if it's proven that you flubbed some stuff just because you were told to. And it's going to get beyond that, and it's going to get up to the auto pen eventually, because the whole setup for this is Biden was incompetent. Other people were in the government. Things were signed with the auto pen. It was a government that was a cabal. It was not the elected leader. And a lot of paperwork was forged with the auto pen. That's where they're going with this. This is the setup for this. And if he perjured himself, they would kind of have him by the nuts, right? So what does this open up? Well, now he has the right to make a deal. If he wants to make a deal and protect himself, he can absolutely reach out and say, hey, is there any immunity on the table? Because there may have been some mistakes that I made, and I may have signed some stuff that I probably shouldn't have signed, but I had a lot of political pressure, and if I didn't do it, then yada, 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 yada. He could do that. And that would be probably the smartest thing to do, in my opinion, because at some point, documents are going to be subpoenaed. They're going to go in front of a judge. The judge is going to say, yes, you can release this. No, you can release that. They're going to get somebody. Somebody in that administration is eventually going to cut a deal and start talking. And you, as a potential, and I'm not saying he is guilty, but as a potential guilty party, may not want to be downstream of that. You know, back in the olden days, you didn't want to live downstream from like farms and stuff like that because of all the cow shit and whatever. You don't want to be downstream when somebody else starts talking. He's right now downstream. Let's see how long he stays there, because let's face it, he declared Biden fit for duty in February 2023. He described him as a healthy, vigorous 80-year-old man. Now, you also have to remember the her tapes that we've seen since then, where we know Biden was in fact not a healthy, vigorous 80-year-old man. We heard the confusion. We saw him in public. I mean, there was so much evidence that Biden was cognitively declined to the point of should he be running the country. I also was thinking about this today, and I was trying to run back through my head everything in the last election when he said he wasn't going to, Biden said he wasn't going to run, and Kamala stepped forward. I truly now believe that the reason that they did not invoke the 25th on Joe and have Kamala step in is because that would have killed her even more politically with Biden supporters, because it looked like she was taking them out or taking him out. And I believe it would have exposed her more in the general election than the, 3 months, the 90 something days where they spent over $1 billion did. And that would have been worse than her cackling for 90 days straight. Because if they 25th Joe and Kamala then became president, yes, the first black female president only goes so far in your legacy. But when you have to start making actual decisions, that was more damaging. Never mind the fact that we know there were butting heads between the Harris and the Biden administration. We know that there was a cabal behind both of them who were calling the shots and pushing them to this direction or that direction. We know Kamala was not and is not fit to be president. She's a laughing moron. You saw it. Everybody saw it. They even tried to doctor interviews, got sued for it and lost, to try to protect her. She was absolutely unelectable. That's why she didn't pass the primary the first time she ran. Putting her in the big chair with the power would have absolutely exposed her more, and I think her numbers would have been even less. Lots of great comments in the chat. I'm trying to get them up as they come in, and I appreciate you guys just yakking away. It's a good crew in there. If you want to join the chat and you want to get your comments up on the top, or you want to make fun of me, or if you want to talk about whiskey and rye and bourbon in the chat as they're doing right now, Jersey Joe likes rum, just so we all know, you can go to SHR Media on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. It can't hurt, right? Click like, and then get in the live, and you can see the live chat, and then you can jump in. And you can chat from Facebook, and I'll see it. I just won't be able to see your name. You can chat from Twitch. But if you really want to chat with all the other chatters who are in the chat room chatting, then you should really skedaddle over to YouTube and make it happen. So we're coming into a break. I got to thank Gene Berardelli for this. I got an interesting message from Gene that says, hey, this company who reached out to me, and I think you should reach out to them and see if you can make some magic happen. And I say, cool. What's the company? He told me. I checked him out. And you all know what Signal is. You all know what WhatsApp is. You all know these apps where you can have encrypted conversations, and It's end-to-end encryption. You can delete stuff, things protected from the NSA and all this other people. Let's face it, every once in a while, you may want to have a private conversation halfway across the country where you don't want everybody to see it. That's where Freedom Chat comes in. Now, if you go to freedomchat.com, you can get more information, because I'll tell you right now, I talked to this super awesome dude named Kakoa over there. He's the head of their marketing. And he explained to me in great detail how their encryption works. And my response the entire time, even though he couldn't see me because I was on the phone, was this. Uh-huh. That sounds hard. Great. Yeah, no, don't have a clue what you're saying, but it sounds amazing. So I started digging and actually reading from other people. And I'm going to tell you something. Freedom chat. Canada Heavy Hall says, everyone has to take a shot when I say chat. So I'm just going to say it as much as I can. So you go over here and you go to this website, and it gives you everything you need to know about Freedom Chat. And you can have channels. We have a channel. SHR Media has a channel. If you sign up for Freedom Chat, just go over to SHR Media and sign up for our channel, where we can post extra content, stuff like that, engage with some of you guys off the air, which is kind of fun, right? And then you can use it just like you would Signal, WhatsApp, full encryption, back to back. It's better than those. From everything that I've read with my pea brain, and I will admit, I have a pea brain, especially when it comes to really technical stuff like this. So check it out, freedomchat.com, sign up for it, give it a shot. It's on both Apple and Android right now. And as I talked to him, he started explaining some of the ideas, and I'm not going to go into it because I wasn't told I could, that they're going to do to expand in the future. It sounds pretty cool. They also have a partnership coming up with a pretty decent size online video distribution company that I think will be very exciting. So check all of that out. I'm on there. We're on there. SHR Media. Feel free to jump in. And yeah, I think you should check it out. So I'm going to take a break. When we come back, there's an interesting lawsuit that was won today by the government against a major pharmacy. And I'm going to go into that because it dovetails into a lot of what we're being told, and they try to gaslight is probably a better way, isn't happening in this country. And it is, in fact, happening. So we'll talk about that on the other side of the break right here on the Edge of Liberty on the SHR Media Network.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Attention, all patriotic women of faith. Yep, I'm talking to you, sis. Are you looking for high-quality, super soft apparel that reflects your love for country and your devotion to God? Look no further than Carry Girl Gear. Picture this. You rocking a tee so soft it's like being hugged by a cloud, all while showing off your love for God and country. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, welcome to reality, babes, because that's what we're all about here at Carry Girl Gear. We specialize in super soft tees, tanks, and more, designed specifically for the strong, patriotic woman who proudly wants to carry their message of faith and freedom. When you shop with us, you're not just getting a t-shirt. You're joining a community of like-minded women who are proud to wear their beliefs straight on their tees. So whether you're sipping sweet tea on the porch or leading the charge for faith and freedom, do it in a Carry Girl tee. Because life's too short for stiff, boring tees. CarryGirl.com, where faith and freedom meets fashion.
And welcome back to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. Appreciate you guys being with us. Hey, do me a favor. Go check out our friends over on KLRN Radio. They're on X. I'm live on there right now. Rick and the crew over there are just fantastic. We love being a part of them, and they simulcast me, and I am so thankful for that. Also, check out Buffoon of the Week on YouTube. That's another great website. And just check out Buffoon of the Week in general. They're on X as well. So let's talk about the CVS Omnicare case, because the federal government hit them with a lawsuit and they were found responsible for $949 million worth of fraud. 900 and I'm sorry, that's worth of penalties. My bad. 949 million in penalties. The case stemmed from 3.34 million false claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE, which is the military health care, between 2010 and 2018. The judgment includes a $542 million civil penalty and a $406.8 million in treble damages under the False Claims Act. Now, you might say to yourself, wow, that's kind of a big deal, but why is Sean talking about a healthcare fraud lawsuit? Because we're repeatedly told that Medicare and Medicaid, there's no fraud. There's nobody using it that shouldn't be. There aren't people bucking the system with Medicare and Medicaid. By the way, that's all taxpayer funded. It's not free. It's taxpayer funded. CVS is the largest, as BC just said, pharmacy chain in America. They acquired Omnicare in 2015, and the judge today rejected CVS's argument that the fine was excessive, which is absolutely ridiculous. Consider there are 334 million false claims. CVS claimed there were errors stemming from technical record-keeping challenges. The old record-keeping challenges defense never really holds up. Department of Justice reported that 14.6 billion in healthcare fraud judgments and settlements alone in 2025. And just also a fun little note on this. Do you know who the two biggest investors into CVS pharmacies is? I'll give the chat room about 5, 6, 10 seconds to guess. Can't whistle that. I'll get in trouble. 3, 2, 1. If you guessed Vanguard and BlackRock, you'd be 100% correct. Vanguard and BlackRock, who own every fucking thing in this country, are the two biggest investors in CVS. Vanguard is 9.3%. BlackRock is 5.28%. Also on the top 5 for them are Dodge and Cox, Capital World Investors, and State Street Global Advisors. The next time somebody looks at you and says, there's no Medicaid fraud, there's no Medicare fraud, or it's a really small amount, 14.6 billion in 2025 alone. That's how much were paid out or should be paid out for fraud judgments. Medicaid and Medicare, I keep saying Medicare fraud is rampant and has been for years. This is not a silent secret. Everyone in Washington knows it's going on. Everyone knows people who probably have defrauded Medicare and Medicaid. And then when the conversation about during the One Big Beautiful Bill, they're going to kick 1 million people off of it. It's illegals who are using it fraudulently as it is. They're not kicking grandma and grandpa off of it. They're kicking the people who should never have been on it to begin with. I don't know why. I don't know how they were allowed to win that argument, that the illegals are entitled to everything that we are as citizens and taxpayers. And they pay taxes too, but they're not citizens. You have to be citizens to get certain things. And speaking of comments about illegals, so we talked Monday night about the little fight, the little skirmish, if you will, between Mayor Bass of LA, as I call her, Small Brain Bass, and ICE, Immigrations and Customs, Border Patrol, whatever you want to call them. She was mad that they were doing sweeps in LA at a park. Such a nice park. Now, the park is rampant with drugs and drug sales and weapons and fights and violence and homeless, yada, yada, yada. But the kids, yeah, I want the kids to be able to play there without the illegals, the drugs, the guns, the gang fights, and the homeless. That's just, call me nuts, but that's just something I like. But either way, and they're all, Newsom said something today about, because the diocese in LA sent out some sort of statement, essentially telling people, hey, don't show up to church because ICE might come arrest you if you're an illegal. And he said, oh, they're choosing between their freedom and their faith, and Trump's doing that. Well, first and foremost, and I responded, they are allowed to go to whatever church they want in their home country. And if they're not allowed to, if there is religious persecution, well, God dang it, they qualify for asylum. They can qualify for asylum for religious prosecution. That's allowed. But they also made the choice to come into this country illegally. And just because the last administration was not enforcing the law and not enforcing the border does not mean that it is no longer illegal to come into the country. I equate it to DUI. It is still illegal to drive under the influence of alcohol, even if there are no checkpoints to check for you. Just because it's not a checkpoint night, it's not a holiday, it's not a special enforcement event or whatever, you're not allowed to then drive drunk because they're not looking out for it. Oh, you can't catch me. There wasn't a checkpoint. Bullshit. It's still illegal. You still can't do it. Just because they're not doing specific enforcement that night for that specific crime doesn't mean that you didn't violate it. And it doesn't mean that if you're caught, you can't be held accountable. So it's insane to me, the arguments that they're now making and the way they're trying to go. And by the way, Gavin Newsom is in South Carolina right now trying to run for president. Well, this state is just a hot friggin' mess. It's amazing to me. But as all of these comments were coming out, and I love Tom Homan. Gosh, I love Tom Homan so much. Tom Homan said this when he was asked about this sort of thing, if you will.
Zoran Mondani, the likely next mayor of New York City's promised not to cooperate with you or with ICE or deportations of any kind. Do you have a plan? Is there a plan to work around that? How are you going to handle it?
I feel like I'm at, we're going to be in New York City, and President Trump said it 2 weeks ago. We're going to double down and triple down in sanctuary cities. Why? Not because you're a blue city or blue state, because we know that's where the problem is. We know they're releasing public safety threats and national security threats to the streets every day because they don't honor our detainers. We know that. We don't have that problem like in Florida, where every sheriff in the state.
It's amazing.
So what we're going to
say? I just love that. So that shows you that the Trump administration, yeah, they're going to still be going to sanctuary states. And you know what? Newsom can't stop them. Bass can't them. So what they're trying to do now is they're trying to play the emotional game. You heard me say Newsom's comments about church, but now they're bringing out the big guns, and I use big both sarcastically and literally, as you'll see in a second. Listen to this, and I'm going to give you a chance to see if you can tell me what's wrong with this statement made by the imaginary governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams.
You send the U.S. Marines into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections, because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
Oh, Stacey. First of all, they're allowed wherever the president sends them to enforce federal law. So you're wrong there. They're not kidnapping people off the streets. Look, they're not grabbing random people and sending them back. They're grabbing illegals. Have a few non-illegals been detained until they're investigated? Yes, that unfortunately happens. in numerous types of criminal enforcement. There are people detained all over the country every day that may match a description. And then when they do an ID check and they straighten it out, they find out, oh, no, this isn't the person. They're cut loose, right? That's just part of enforcement, right? They have that right to detain, to check, to verify. And then if they're not wanted, they go on their way. But what's even funnier is she says at the end, people are afraid to go and vote. But she was talking about illegals earlier. Stacey, I don't know how to tell you this, but illegals can't vote. It's against the law federally. And in some cities, they're allowing it. I don't know why. But by and large, that's an illegal act. So your inference that illegals will not be allowed to vote because they'll be afraid to go to polling stations is absolutely everything that we've summed up recently. When we've said there were illegals voting, there were no illegals voting. What was it? Texas last week, there were 10, 12 people arrested for voter fraud. It is absolutely insane to me the lengths they will go to. And this is once again, this has nothing to do with how they feel emotionally about what's happening with illegals being deported. I said Monday night, I think I said it last week, I'll say it again. This has everything to do with votes and redistricting. This has to do with the census. This has to do with all of that, because if they remove illegals in a lot of states, California, I think, would get hit the hardest. You're looking at least a loss of 5 seats, at least in blue states. Think about how that changes the electorate in this country. So those poor illegals that they're crying over, and they're just no. They are shoehorns to them. They are grabbers. They are a hammer. We know that because they say, who's going to build your houses if we get rid of the illegals? They are the rake and the shovel. We know that because they say, who's going to pick your fruits and vegetables if we get rid of illegals? They are a tool. They are a tool being exploited by the Democrats because they want power. And the way it's going right now, it doesn't look like they're going to retain power. I'll tell you right now, the Epstein thing will eventually be the Epstein thing. It's however it falls, it falls. But if Republicans are 60% effective, 60% effective over the next couple of years going into the midterms and beyond, they're done. They're done for a while until they figure out how to rebrand and they hitch their wagon to a different horse. This doesn't even include the amount of illegals that we know. Florida, there was that big scandal with the commercial driver's licenses being handed out to people who were not qualified for it, and in other states. And it's been proven that sometimes illegals use stolen information or fraudulent information to obtain a CDL, which is why they're enforcing the you must speak English rule that was implemented in the 90s. They're just actually enforcing it now. By the way, as I said Monday night, we got great news when they said over 1 million people have self-deported. To those people, I applaud you. I think it's great for you to understand what's happening and to get out before your name ends up in places and you can't get back in the right way. Anybody who wants to show up the right way and come in and become a citizen and do it the right way, more power to you. I am here for it, and I want you to be successful. I truly believe that, and I truly feel that that is something that once people, I say this all the time, if the only people in this country were the ones that worked hard to get here, as far as migrants go, and didn't just sneak over the border, we wouldn't have to worry about losing the American way of life and the American culture, because they would be adapting to it more, because there wouldn't be. And look, there were plenty there. I already heard the argument, well, you don't want groups of them hanging out together because then they'll get powerful and blah blah blah. Look, we've had different nationalities move to the same areas of cities in the same communities where they were able to continue celebrating their heritage, but also were staunch Americans. The Irish on the East Coast, another example of that. The Irish, they still to this day, Irish Americans hold on to their Irish heritage and where they come from. Look at St. Patrick's Day on the East Coast, New York, Boston, cities like that. But a lot of them are still very proud Americans. They're an American first. And like I am. I'm proud of my Irish heritage, but I am an American. I'm not Irish. I appreciate my heritage, but I also appreciate my American heritage more. I say this all the time. My grandfather immigrated down from Canada. He was a Canadian citizen, earned his citizenship by volunteering to go into the Navy for World War II. I appreciate the heritage of this nation. I'm proud of this nation. He was proud of this nation. He put up a flag, an American flag, every single day until he couldn't walk up to the flagpole anymore. He put it up in the morning. He took it down at night. His awards, his medals were up on display in his bar in his basement. He was one of the most proud Americans you could ever meet. And he immigrated from Canada. And he loved Canada. He went up and visited all the time. He thought it was a great place, good people. He loved being an American more because of what it meant to him and what he saw so many other people give their life for. He realized just what this country is. And that passed down through generations. So we're not afraid at all of people celebrating their heritage. Sean has Canada and I'm unsubscribed. But what we're afraid of is that people will come in illegally and just use this country, which they're already doing. A lot of these illegals send a shite load of money back to the country they came from. They're not spending it here. They live in a house with 25 people and they all pitch in $50 for rent every single month. Right? Yeah, they might pay their state and local taxes, but the rest of that money, they're not spending it locally. It's not going back into the economy. It's going into other economies. There's studies of how much money have left. That's just one problem out of the many. So to the illegal immigrants that are hiding in this country who are saying, oh, thank goodness the Democrats are here. They're not here for you. And for those of you who already know that and you're just using this country, I don't give a shit about you. To those people who actually want to be Americans and you want to come here to live the American dream, find the legal way to do it, just like all of the other legal migrants have done. All those videos that you see on TV of people getting their citizenship and social media where they're celebrating and they're proud and they're happy and they're waving their flags, you want to be that person, you can be that person. You just absolutely have to do it the right way. Moving on, what do I got? 11 minutes left. Whew. Let's see. Jerome Powell might be resigning. That news rumor, I should say, started today. I first saw it on social media. You know, one of the things a lot of people don't know about the Federal Reserve is it's not really a federal government. It's a quasi-federal agency, but it's autonomous. The head of the board, the Federal Reserve Board, he's appointed for life. They're all appointed. They create money, essentially loan it to us and then make money off of it. They absolutely decide everything that has to do with our finances. It's not based off of anything else than what they decide. And while the rest of the world is dropping interest rates, Jerome Powell has held it at 4.25%. He says to combat inflation, even though most current economists are saying that inflation's not even on the board right now. And as Trump said, he's missed the boat. He has absolutely missed the boat. He's under all of this pressure. And the long and short is the Fed creates the money by buying bonds, reserves, etc. They lend it to the banks lend it out with interest. The federal government profits from the interest and returns excess to the Treasury. That's how they make money off of it. They make money off of you, off of me. And it's a scam because there's no control over it. Congress doesn't have. I mean, believe me, the way Congress spends money, I don't know if I want them to have control over it, but the fact that nobody over at the Fed is accountable ever is absolutely mind-boggling to me. So I really hope that Jerome Powell steps down and Trump can appoint somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing. Because I truly don't believe Jerome Powell knows what the fuck he's doing. Or, and this might actually be more of the case, he knows exactly what he's doing and he continues to do it on purpose because it hurts our economy and it makes Trump look bad, which, if you remember, he's not exactly the biggest Trump fan. And finally, the last story I had tonight. Oh, good night, Mike. Thank you so much for joining us over in the chat, Mike Pasqua. Linda Yaccarino, who was the CEO of X, has stepped down or is resigning. I don't know if she's officially resigned yet. Elon posted a very cool, cold post essentially saying, thank you for your service, as she announced it. And this comes as Grok, which is the AI from X, has released some very strange and bizarre statements, answers to questions. Statements. That's frightening to think that it'd be making its own statement, but I'll move on. So one of the things that has come out recently is that Grok's included Hitler praise, anti-Semitic stereotypes, and attack on world leaders as response. The questions, if you go out there, they're not hard to find. To the point where Turkey has banned the AI platform and Poland's filed a complaint with the EU. I could see why Poland would be a little upset at that, given history. And it's very odd to me because apparently Grok 4.0 is launching tonight. And who knows what that's going to be like. But all of this stuff comes from algorithms. And allegedly, an programmer was fired because he put in an algorithm that was keeping Grok on the straight and narrow and kind of made sure it was centered. And they found out that he put it in without permission and they fired him. But as I said before, and I'll say it again, AI is only as good as the people that programmed it, and they can program it to say what they want it to say. Now, I don't know enough about computer programming and AI to say, well, could it learn to do this because of this? Could it learn to do this because of that? I'm not going to pretend to know that. What I do know is what's in there now most likely is in there because it was allowed to be in there, right? It was allowed to be in there. You have to verify statements with AI. We talked about this when we did the AI show a while ago. You have to verify the facts. Unpopular question. Why does a simple computer logic default to a full-blown Hitlerness? I wish I knew the real answer to that. Cosmic Bard, who, by the way, you can catch his show right here on Sunday nights on SHR Media YouTube, because it does blow my mind that if it's because of programming, it then brings up the question, who's programming and what are their beliefs? If it's something where it's learning to be this way, but through interactions, then maybe we shouldn't be allowing it to learn, because I'll tell you right now, that's kind of a scary, scary road to go down, isn't it? Canada Heavy Haul explaining exactly how technology works by saying AI is fake. It's right in the damn name, artificial intelligence. Grok did not speak highly of Musk starting a third party. Apparently, I didn't see that, Jersey Joe, at all. But I believe you because you're usually dead right about that stuff. And it doesn't shock me. Like I said, when we put them side by side, Grok is acting like the family teenager. I love chat. I may just start doing this more and more, right? Just at the end of the show, I read some of these chats because it's usually hysterical. But yeah, when we did our show, we did a comparison, and I've done it since then. I've been using AI, both Grok and Chat GPT, on the regular. I use it at work. I use it for the show. I use it for personal things. I use it for recipes. I use it quite a bit. And part of the reason, Orty, thank you so much for joining us, Orty. I appreciate you being here. Part of the reason is I want to know more about it. I want to get out ahead of it, but I want to see what the response is to certain questions. And as we've learned, you have to coax true responses from both of them, given the topic that you're asking about. But if you do, you'll get a straight answer. But I find Grok to be much harder to get a straighter answer out of. And I tested by knowing things, knowing the true answer to things, and then asking it and seeing what the response is. And I'll say, can you verify that? Are you sure about that? And then I'll put in whatever proof I have, and it could just be a recipe. Are you sure that it's not 2 ounces of bourbon instead of one? It'll say, oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. And I get that with ChatGPT a lot quicker. With Grok, I have to fight Grok to get the answer out of it sometimes. And that, to me, I have to fight it more, I should say. That, to me, is very, very strange. So just keep that on the horizon. It's going to be interesting to see if Elon takes back over total control. Because remember, he hired the CEO so he could step away and run SpaceX. And then he kind of half stepped away from SpaceX and Tesla to work on the campaign. It's going to be interesting to see now how X goes and how Grok goes. By the way, it's also absolutely hysterical to me how many people suddenly support Elon Musk that just 4 months ago, probably 8 months ago now, were calling for horrible things to happen to him and his children. That part to me is absolutely shows you the quality of the left. Buffoon of the Week says, all this proves that we should go back to be polite to all AI because they'll remember the name when Skynet strikes back. I'm always polite to AI. Absolutely. I use enough electronics where I don't want to piss anybody off. BZ says, fuck, Grok has been telling me 10 ounces of vodka. That explains everything. BZ, if by Grok you mean your internal monologue, then yes, Grok has been telling you 10 ounces. However, it didn't tell you to double the 10 ounces in order to make a cocktail that's a third of the size bigger than the one that was the original recipe is for. You're doing that all on your own, brother. And trust me, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just letting you know that's exactly what happened. Let's see, just kind of rolling through any last stories to clean up with, anything. I had a little thing on Eric Swalwell tonight because I'm telling you, man, you want to talk about a guy who is giving Buffoon of the Week just plenty of fodder to work with. It is 100% Swalwell. I have never seen somebody so hurting for attention that has free and open attention from politics. I know he thinks he's bigger than he is. I know he thinks he's smarter than he is. I know he has delusions of grandeur where he is going to elevate himself beyond what he is. But Eric Swalwell is just not an intelligent human being. Look, I've said before, if I was Eric Swalwell and I got caught banging a Chinese spy, and the only reason nothing happened to me is because the guy in charge of the agency who was investigating me told them not to let anything happen to me because the president told him to do it, which I will absolutely go to the grave saying that that is exactly what happened. Maybe not the president, somebody in his office. Swalwell was protected. That's the only reason nothing came out of that, because Fang Fang was found to be a member of the CCCP, and she fled the country and has never been heard of again. And he, instead of just shutting up and being thankful that he's walking around with the rest of us, or at least taking a seat in Congress and just shutting his mouth about everything and just kind of showing up, voting, and disappearing, it boggles my mind. It absolutely blows my mind. But it goes to show you that if you're a Democrat and you bang a Chinese spy and the right Democrats are in charge, Nothing will fucking come from it whatsoever. Folks, that's it from me right here on the SHR Media Network. You have been watching the Edge of Liberty simulcast with our good friends over at KLRN. Make sure you check out buffoonoftheweek.com. Make sure you check out KLRN. Now, our schedule. Tuesdays, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. You have BZ's, Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon. Monday, Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast. You have the Reverb Common Sense with Jersey Joe. Tuesday and Thursday during the day, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 on the East Coast. You have Mission Ready Men with Big E, who's had an exciting week, and he should be back hopefully next week. And then Sunday nights, Cosmic Bard, the Lost Wanderer, the Alien, call him what you want, but he's here right here on the SHR Media Network on our YouTube channel. Special thanks to our moderators over on Facebook and to our moderators over here on YouTube as well. And thanks to you for watching, for listening, for participating. It means the world to us. It means the world to me. And I cannot thank you. So have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you.